So I want to start first of all with I've seen a lot of interviews about five languages of love, but I want to tell the Mexican, if you can tell the Mexican families, what was the original motivation behind the five languages of love?
Well, what I discovered in my counseling, I've been doing marriage and family counseling for many, many years, that what made one person feel loved did not make another person feel loved. I'll never forget the first time it dawned on me because a couple came in. I did not know them. I had never met them. I found out they'd been married to each other for 30 years. In a while, the wife said, Dr. Chapman, let me just tell you the main problem. I don't feel any love coming from my husband. She said, we don't fight. We're kind to each other, but he lives his life and I live my life. And I just feel empty. And I don't know how long I can go on like this. Well, I looked at her husband and he said, I don't understand her. I do everything I can to show her that I love her. And I don't understand why she doesn't feel loved. And I said, well, what do you do to show your love to her? He said, well, I get home from work before she does, so I start the evening meal. Sometimes I have it ready when she gets home. If not, she'll help me. After we eat, I wash the dishes every night. On Thursday, I vacuum the floors. On Saturday, I wash the car, I mow the grass, I help her with the laundry. And he went on, and I was wondering to myself, what does this woman do? It sounded to me like he was doing everything. And he said, and she says she doesn't feel loved. He said, I don't know what else I could do. I looked back at her and she started crying. And she said, he's right. He is a hard-working man. And I appreciate all that he does. But we don't ever talk. He is always doing something. And we don't ever sit down and share life with each other and talk about our thoughts and our feelings and our dreams. And we don't ever talk. And I realized here was a sincere husband who was loving his wife the best way he knew how, but it wasn't connecting with her emotionally. Okay. And after that, I had similar stories over and over in my office. And I knew there had to be a pattern to what I was hearing, but I had no idea what it was. Until I took time to read several years of notes that I made when I was counseling and asked myself the question, when someone said, I feel like my spouse doesn't love me, what did they want? What were they complaining about? And their answers fell into 5 categories. And I later called them the 5 love languages. And I started using that in my counseling. If you want her to feel love, you've got to learn to express your love in her love language. And if you want him to feel love, you've got to learn to speak his language. And I would help couples discover each other's language, challenge them to go home and try it. And sometimes they would come back in 2 weeks and say, Gary, this is making a difference. I mean, the climate's different now. And then I started teaching it in our church in small groups of people. And the same thing would happen. It was probably 5 years later that I thought, if I could put this concept in a book and write it in the language of the common person, leave out psychological terms that many people would not understand, maybe I could help a lot of couples that I would never have time to see in my office. Of course, little did I know the book would sell now over 20 million copies and be published in over 50 languages around the world, which really surprised me because my background, before I went to study counseling and theology, I did an undergrad and later a master's degree in cultural anthropology, studying cultures and how they're organized. I was very sensitive to cultural differences. And the Spanish publisher was the first one that came to get the rights to publish it in Spanish. And I said to my publisher, I don't know if this works in Spanish culture. And they said, well, they've read the book and they want to publish it. They published it. It became their bestseller. And then it went all over the world. So, yeah, it's I think people have asked me, how do I explain that, And I said, well, to me, the short answer is God and the long answer is God. I couldn't make that happen if I wanted to make it happen. But I do think what's happened on the human level is couples read it, the lights come on, they realize how they have been missing each other emotionally.
Mhm.
They take a quiz or they read the book and they see what each other's language is. They start speaking language, each other's language, and what I call the love tank fills up. They feel love.
Right.
And then they want their brother and his wife to read it, and their sister and her husband. So it's just gone word of mouth, really, all over the world. So it's
So
been so encouraging to me, of course, as an author.
there was my wife and I don't want to make this personal, but I have to, and I
Okay.
believe this is going to be helpful for the people who is watching us, because my wife and I we're turning 12 years of marriage this year on November.
Okay.
So we went through a lot of difficulties, crises, ups and downs during our marriage, and we read the 5 love languages, and we were discussing about it. We found out that my love language, my first love language is I'm very touchy. I need, I need feeling. I need to feel the other person around me. I
Yes.
need to feel it. And my wife, that's her 5th one. She doesn't need it a lot.
Yes.
And my last one is the gifts. I don't care about gifts, and that's her number 1. So we're all shifted around. So how do we work through that?
yeah.
And I believe that's another question. How do you work when your love languages are pretty opposite? That doesn't mean you don't have them, but that's a list on the other person. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that happens many times. That happens. Here's what I think motivates us when we recognize that when we speak their language, it makes them feel like we feel when they speak our language. So understanding that should motivate us to want to learn how to learn, their love language. But it's a learning process. For example, if you did not receive that particular love language growing up, you don't know how to speak it. So what we have to do is learn. And I said to a husband once whose love language, he said his wife's language was words of affirmation.
Mhm.
And he said, I didn't receive any words of affirmation growing up. All I was told is I was lazy and I was never going to amount to anything. And I heard negative words. And he said, I don't know how to say positive words. And I said, well, you are where you are. You can't change your history. But here's the good news. You can learn to speak that language, even if you didn't receive it. I said, it'll take you some time and some effort. And I asked him, I said, can you tell me 3 things, for example, that your wife is good at? He said, well, she's a good cook, and
Mhm.
she's a good school teacher,
Mhm.
and she's a good mother. And I wrote those 3 words down. And out beside of them, I wrote 2 or 3 sentences, like on cooking. Honey, I haven't told you this, but I really appreciate all the meals you fix. I mean, you're a wonderful cook. There's 2 or 3 sentences. I said, now here's your assignment. I gave it to him. This week, I want you to get in a room by yourself and read these sentences out loud twice a day. So you hear yourself saying these words.
Okay.
And then when you come back, I want you to be able to say them to me without looking at your notes. Okay. He said, well, I'll try. Well, he came back and he could say them. He said them to me. I said, now here's your assignment. The next 3 weeks, I want you to give her one of these each week. I don't care what day of the week or what time of the day, but you give her one of these each week. I said, now the first time you give her one of these, you probably ought to do it when she's looking in another direction.
Mhm.
Because if you look her in the eye, it's probably going to blow your mind trying to say these words, looking at her in the eye. So let her be looking somewhere else, but you just say that to her, okay?
Okay.
He said, I hope I can do this. I said, listen, you said them to me. You can say them to her. So he came back. He had done it. And I said, how'd your wife respond? He said, on the 3rd week, she said to me, what is going on with you? I have never heard you give me so many compliments. I said, what did you say? He said, I told her, honey, we read that book on the love languages, and your language is words of affirmation. I'm trying to learn how to put my love into words because I do love you. She said, oh, honey, that's so sweet. So I think like with you, with gifts, if gifts do not come natural for you and you've never
Yeah.
bought gifts before, it's a learning experience. And what you can do though is to ask her if she's open, honey, could you make me a list of the kind of gifts that you might like to receive? I mean, I'd like to buy them, but I don't know what kind to buy for you, you know? Or if she has a sister, I don't know if she does, but if she has a sister, you might ask the sister, what kind of gifts do you think she would really like to receive?
Okay.
And the sister might have ideas for you, you know. And then it'll still be hard because it's a language you don't know. It's just like if I tried to learn Spanish, it would take me a while to learn Spanish, you know. And so it takes the time to learn that. And then she would have to learn that physical touch means to you, you know, that she loves you. And so, you know, she can start with just little pats on the back, you know, or just little things, you know, and kind of work it up because if she's not a touchy person, it's not natural for her to do that.
Right.
But because she knows how important it is, she can learn, you know, and the more she does it, the more natural it becomes. Just like learning a spoken language. The more you use it, the more it kind of becomes easier for you.
That was going to be one of my questions. Does it become natural somehow, or do you have to put effort every time, like for the next 50 years or whatever your marriage lasts?
I think it will take effort for a year or two, maybe, you know, but it becomes more natural after a while. It's still not natural, but it becomes easier because you're learning how to do it now, and it's easier to do it. Yeah. But the good news is you can learn to speak any of these languages, even if you didn't receive them and even if they're not meaningful to you. Now, my wife's language is not gifts, but my father taught me before I got married. He said, son, give the woman gifts.
Mm-hmm.
Give the woman gifts. I bought her gifts because my dad told me to. Every gift I bought her, she took back to the store and exchanged it for something else. And I'm thinking, I'm wasting my time, you know?
Yeah.
And I said to her, honey, would it be just as meaningful to you if you just go bought your own gift? She said, well, yeah, honey, I would. I do, because that's not my love language. She said, yeah, that'd be okay. So now she buys something she likes, and then she's happy.
Of course.
But her love language is acts of service. So I had to learn how to do acts of service because what I did by nature, I gave her words of affirmation because that's my love language. And so in the early stages of our marriage, before I came down off the emotional high that we call falling in love,
right.
I gave her positive words. I told her how nice she looked, how much I appreciated what she did. I probably told her several times a day, I love you, honey. I am so glad I married you. I love you, love you, love you. And one day she said to me, you keep on saying, I love you. If you love me, why don't you help me? I said, what do you mean? She said, well, you don't ever offer to wash the dishes or vacuum the floors or take out the trash. I mean, you don't offer to do anything. And I didn't say this, but what I was thinking, what are you talking about? My mother did those things. We bring our history with us. And I like to say to guys, hey, guy, you're not married to your mama, okay? And you gals are not married to your daddy. Don't expect him to do everything your daddy did. So anyway, I said, well, honey, look, I don't mind washing dishes. I know how to wash dishes. I did not know you wanted me to do it. And I said, I can vacuum the floors. I don't mind doing that. I said, now, I don't know how to clean the toilet. And she said, well, I can teach you, you know.
Of course.
Well, I started doing those things and she was happy. You know, she felt love then. So
right.
It's just a matter of realizing how important it is to the other person. And then consequently, we're going to really make efforts to learn how to do this in a meaningful way to them. Yeah.
I believe you're talking about my marriage, even though you don't know me.
Yep. Well, it makes a difference in all marriages.
Yeah, it's very common. Do you think there's a particular love language that you find more challenging or demanding to carry out in practice?
I think the one that is more challenging is the one you did not receive as a child.
Okay.
If you never received it, then you don't feel comfortable with it at all. And so that's the hardest one, is the one that you never received.
Okay.
Or as you mentioned, your number 5, if that's the one that's their number 1, yeah, it's gonna be a learning curve. It's gonna be harder. You're gonna have to work harder at it because it doesn't come natural for you. Yeah.
Okay. Of the 5 love languages, have you observed that one tends to be the most common across the general population?
Yes, words of affirmation is the most common. It's about 35 or 40% of
Okay.
people. Words of affirmation is there first. And I don't remember exact numbers actually on the rest of them. I just remember that was it's the most familiar one, but it kind of goes down from that. And gifts is really the least important.
Oh,
It's
really?
it's only about I think 5 or 10% of the people that gifts is their primary language.
Do you think it's due to a relationship with money? Because let me explain. When my wife and I recently got married, we started to do budgeting. We went through Financial Peace University with Dave Ramsey and everything.
Yeah. Mhm.
So I'm this guy that is, I'm a square guy.
Yeah.
I go through budgets and everything, and my wife is more, soft and everything. So
Uh-huh.
the first 5 years were like, since I'm very squared, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For me, the gift represented something out of the budget.
Yeah.
So it was related to money. But when I was talking through it with my wife, she said, I don't even care about the money. If you write me a letter, that's a gift for me. If you put a post-it on the mirror in the morning, that's a gift for me. So I had to change my perspective on gifts.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. That's good, because it's not how much the gift costs. For example, a man told me not long ago, he said, Dr. Chapman, my wife's language is gifts. So I was taking a walk one morning and I saw a bird feather and I picked it up and brushed it off. When I got home, I said to her, honey, when I was walking, I found this bird feather and I want to give it to you because it reminded me that you are the wind beneath my wings.
Man,
And
that's
she
romantic.
said, oh, that is so sweet. He gave a gift and words of affirmation, together.
Right.
So the gift doesn't have to be expensive. And there are different kinds of gifts. There are expensive gifts, really fanciful gifts, jewelry or something that you might give on a special occasion. But sometimes it's just sentimental gifts, maybe just
Right.
a framed photo of a memory that the two of you had together, or as I said, a bird feather.
Right. Right.
Just something, with a young child, a little 8-year-old guy, you can pick up a stone in a city parking lot and take it home to him and say, hey, man, I found this today and I thought about you and I want you to have it. Look at the colors in this stone. If gifts is his language, you will find that stone in his dresser drawer when he's 23 years old and he'll remember the day you gave it to him.
Wow.
So this applies not only in a marriage, it applies also with our children.
Right.
And
Okay. So I've been talking about this interview with many friends on different dinner tables and everything. And there was a question coming out. Okay. So I have many questions from them. We're going to see them at the end. But one of the questions that I want to bring right now is that when there's a conflict between both people in the marriage, man and woman, let's say they both read the book or they start looking for solutions or whatever. But the question was, who starts making a change? Because when you're hurt, and when you don't receive the love that you believe you deserve, or however we want to talk about it, we always go through a phase of he needs to do it or she needs to do it first.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
who needs to make the change first?
Well, the Bible gives some good advice on that one.
Okay.
Jesus said, Why do you try to get the speck out of the other person's eye when there's a beam in your own eye? First, get the beam out of your own eye. Then you can see more clearly to get the speck out of the other person's eye. But you're right. By nature, if we want to improve a relationship, we always think in terms of if they would just change this and this and this and this, we could have a good marriage.
Right.
And so we come across as condemning. We keep bringing it up. You need to do this. You need to do that. You need to do the other thing. And we're just pushing them away, pushing them further away. So I think we have to recognize that the place to start is, if you're a Christian, you ask God, where am I failing in my marriage? God will answer that prayer. He will tell you. He won't give you all of them on one night because that would kill you. But he'll tell you some things that you need to change. And so you start changing those things.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to the love languages, I've often had this in my office where only one of them came for counseling. The other one wouldn't even come for counseling, and they would not read the book.
Okay.
And they didn't even want to talk about us.
Mm-hmm.
And I've asked them, I said, would you be willing to do a 6-month experiment with me?
Mm-hmm.
If you and I can sit here and figure out what your spouse's language is, would you be willing, with God's help, to speak their love language at least once a week for 6 months? And let's just see what would happen. And I've had couples say, well, I guess I can. I guess I can. So they agree. I said, if you will, I'll meet with you every 3 weeks and talk with you about how it's going. I have seen that many, many times before the 6 months is over. The other person begins to soften up. They begin to turn and start asking you what they can do to help you.
Mm-hmm.
And because love stimulates love. You see, the scriptures say we love God because God first loved us. We didn't start a relationship with God. He started it. We just respond. Well, that principle applies in a marriage. If one of you is willing to speak the other person's language on a regular basis for 6 months, I can't guarantee you that everyone will turn around, but I can tell you I've seen it over and over again. That person begins to melt because they know they don't deserve what you're doing. And inside, they think you're just going to do it a couple of weeks and forget it. You do it 6 months, somewhere along the line, man, they're going to come back to you and say, hey, I don't deserve the way you've been treating me. And I just want you to know, I want to start doing some things that you need from me. See, love stimulates love. So to me, that's the approach you make, is you start with yourself and apologizing for any failure that you have, but then begin speaking their language on a regular basis over a period of time, whether they speak your language or not.
Okay.
Chances you're having the most positive influence you can have on them. Every single day we're influencing each other. It's either a negative influence or a positive influence. And when you're just pointing out to them what's wrong with them and you need to change this and this and this and this and this, that's a negative. You're having a negative impact on them. They want to stay away from you. They don't want to eat stuff. So you're having a negative impact. What we want to have is a positive impact. And remember, God loved us when we were unlovely and sent Christ to die for us on the cross.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't wait till our spouse is lovely. We love them like God loved us, even when they're unlovely. And we're having a positive influence on them.
Okay. So what do you recommend? I want to bring God into the table after this question, but what do you recommend? First, knowing our own language of love, or knowing our partner's language of love first?
I think the most important thing, and in fact, as a matter of fact, we've just released a new book. It's not in Spanish yet, but it's called The Most Important Love Language. Mm. And people read the title and say, what is it? What is it? What is it? And in the first paragraph of the book, we say this: the most important love language is the love language of your spouse or the other person. Because by nature, when we read the book, we think about, oh, this is my love language. I need to tell them, I got to speak my love language, because we're all self-centered, And so I understand that. But what we've got to learn is to focus on loving the other person. And if we do that, then we're having a positive influence on them. And chances are they're going to reciprocate and start speaking our love language. So, yeah.
Okay, so bringing God to the table. I read a statistic about marriages that 99% of marriages that pray together stay together, never divorce. 99%, 98.99, let's say 99.
Yeah.
What is or what should be God's role in marriages?
Well, I think God's role is to help us. He wants us to have a good marriage. And that's why he's laid down principles, the whole principle of love. He said, love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Mhm.
Well, your spouse is your closest neighbor. So, and we need outside help because by nature, all of us are self-centered. And love is the opposite of that. Love is not selfishness. Love is reaching out for the benefit of the other person. So that whole thing of praying together, here's what I've encouraged people, because many Christians do not pray together, a husband and wife. If you don't count thanking for the food, most Christians will thank God for the food. But what I encourage them to do is, if you don't feel comfortable praying out loud, pray silently. And here's what I mean by that. Hold hands, pray silently, and when you get through praying, you say amen out loud so they know you're through, and you hang on until they say amen.
Mm.
And I said, anybody can do that. Anybody can do that. And so I also encourage them to make it even easier is, get a devotional book where you have just a one page. I've written a devotional book. I don't know if it's in Spanish or not. It's called the 1 Year Love Language Minute Devotional. And yeah. And so it's a scripture verse at the top, and then a devotional, a couple paragraphs, and then a printed prayer. And I say, what you can do is one day the husband can read the whole thing. He reads the scripture, he reads the devotional, and then he reads the prayer. So he's praying out loud, but he's reading a prayer that's written. Mm-hmm. And then the next day, the wife does that. And chances are, if you begin to work through a devotional like that together, it becomes easier to begin to learn to pray out loud to each other. So, yeah, I think it's really important because really we all need God's help, because if we just limit ourselves to our wisdom and our selfishness, we're not going to have a good marriage. Right. But if every day we're asking God to help us love our spouse like he loves us, and to confess our failures to our spouse like we confess our failures to God, mm-hmm. and to forgive the other person for their failures when they apologize like God forgives us, then we're going to have a good marriage. You don't have to be perfect to have a healthy marriage. Right. But you do have to deal with your failures. So when you realize that you have hurt them, then we need to apologize, accept responsibility for it, and say, honey, I'm sorry. I realize I hurt you, and I don't want to hurt you. And is there anything I can do that will make this right or make it up to you? Because I want us to have a good relationship. And then we choose to forgive. And forgiveness is not a feeling. Forgiveness is a decision. There's 3 Hebrew words in the Old Testament, 4 Greek words in the New Testament that are translated forgive or forgiveness. But the 2 basic ideas are to pardon the person. That's what God does for us. He pardons us. He shows mercy rather than justice. Pardon them. And then the other is to take away. We're going to remove the barrier that this offense has created. Because when you hurt your spouse, it's like putting an emotional block in a wall, and it doesn't go away just with the passing of time. It goes away when they apologize, and you forgive them. So forgiveness is, I'm going to remove this barrier so our relationship can go forward. So it's not a feeling, it's a choice. And we are challenged as Christians, of course, to forgive others in the same way God forgives us. So when we confess our sins, God forgives us. So if they confess to us and apologize to us, we want to forgive them.
Mm-hmm. This next question has to do with Jesus. So it's very hard for me. It was hard for me to place it in Spanish, even harder to place it in English, because did Jesus or do Jesus has or had a love language himself, or did he demonstrate the five love languages through Matthew, Mark, John, and all
Yeah.
these books?
Yeah, I was asked that question many times. What the question most people ask me is, what is God's love language?
Okay.
So I went through the whole Bible again and later wrote a book called God Speaks Your Love Language.
Mhm.
Because what I realized is God speaks all five languages fluently, Old Testament and New Testament, all five languages God spoke. And Jesus, when he was on earth, spoke the five. He like, for example, he touched the children. Remember when they brought the children to Jesus, he was speaking to a multitude and people
Sure.
brought the children and the disciples said, no, 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 this is for adults. And Jesus rebuked the disciples. He said, hey guys, let the little children come to me, for of such is the kingdom of God. And the next verse is he put his hands on them and blessed
Okay.
them. So, Jesus touched people physically. And after Jesus ascended back to heaven, remember Saul? Saul
Yeah.
was against Christians. He was just going to put Christians in jail.
Yeah.
And remember, God touched him on the way to Damascus and knocked him
Mhm.
off of his animal and blinded him. And he said, Saul, why are you persecuting me? And Saul said, who are you? He said, I'm Jesus. And he heard the voice of God.
Mhm. Mhm.
Wow. And he gave his life to Christ and became the great apostle of the Christian faith, the apostle Paul. So physical touch, but all these other languages, you will find them in the Bible. And that book on God Speaks Your Love Language. Again, I don't know if that's in Spanish or not. I know the
Yeah.
Spanish publisher has published a lot of my books.
Yeah.
That may be in there, but God speaks all of our languages.
I got a lot of homework now. Homework to do and to read. Okay, so next question. What is the future of relationships? Where are we heading? Do you think we need to focus on anything in specific?
Well, I think, let's face it, all of us are unique. Each person is unique, and a husband and wife, that they have different ideas, they have different emotions, they have different thoughts about the future. But I think in a marriage, what we want to do is share life with each other intellectually, share our thoughts with each other about for the future, dreams we might have for the future. Uh, Share our emotions with each other, whether they're positive or negative emotions. To say, honey, I don't want to hurt you. I just want to share what's going on inside of me. I really felt hurt when you did da 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 da. And so we sharing our emotions with each other and allowing that to happen, and then sharing obviously our physical bodies with each other, the whole sexual part of the marriage, sharing our spiritual walk with God together, and so. But depending on our gifts as Christians, our gifts, our abilities, we will do different things. Not everybody is supposed to be a pastor of a church.
Mhm.
Not everybody is supposed to, do anything. We're unique. But what we want to do is invest our lives in helping other people, because that's the challenge of the Christian. Remember, Jesus said about himself, the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve,
Right.
and then to give his life a ransom for others. So we're here to follow his example. And so the attitude of love is, I want to enrich the lives of everybody that I encounter. If I have a job, I want to enrich the lives of the people that I work with. I want to do anything I can to help them. And so if we have an attitude of love, we're going to make a positive impact on the world,
Mhm.
just with everybody that we encounter. And obviously in a marriage, we choose the attitude of love. And the attitude of love is, honey, I'm in this marriage to enrich your life. I'm here to help you become the person you believe God wants you to become.
Mhm.
And with our children, the same thing. We're here to love you. We want to help you grow up to be a person that will know God and that will also make a positive impact on the world. And so imagine if all Christians would consciously choose the attitude of love, we could make a tremendous impact on culture.
Right. Of
you
course.
know. So I think to me that's the challenge, is that we take the attitude of Christ, that I'm here to serve other people, And whatever abilities you have, you want to use them to serve and enrich the lives of other people.
Are we becoming somehow more selfish nowadays compared to 30 years ago that this book was written?
I don't know. I think by nature, we've always been self-centered, but being self-centered, it doesn't mean that we're not important to take care of ourselves. Yeah,
Right.
we should take care of ourselves, eat right and do exercise and get sleep. And, but it's not to become selfishness because selfishness is I'm in this for what I can get out of it.
Okay.
And, I've heard this so many times through the years when a person is getting ready to leave their spouse, they will say things like, I haven't felt loved by you in 14 years. You're just not meeting my needs, and I'm out of here. And most of the time when they say that, they've already fallen in love with somebody else out there, and they say, oh man, this is the person, this is my person, new person. What they don't know is second marriages, the divorce rate's higher than first marriages. The answer is not running somewhere else. The answer is learning how to love the person you're now married to.
Doctor, what inspires you today to keep you sharing this to the families?
Because so many people have told me through the years. In fact, just Saturday, I was leading a marriage conference in Florida, and I had six different couples come up to me and say basically the same thing. Gary, we just wanted to share with you. 15 years ago, we were at the point of divorce, and somebody gave us your book on the 5 love languages. And we read it, and the lights came on. It literally saved our marriage. As you said, the book's been out over 30 years now. And I hear those stories all the time. And that's what keeps me going. That's why I continue to go marriage conferences, and that's why I continue to write books. That's why I wrote this new book, because in this new book, which I'm sure it'll be in Spanish somewhere along the line, now it just came out in January.
Okay.
The love language that matters most, because in that book, we also identify some of the dialects within each of these languages. In the first book, I mentioned that these languages have dialects, different ways to speak them.
Right.
But in this new book, we're spelling that out. And I also mentioned in the original book that our personality also interfaces with our love language. But in this new book, we're explaining that. We're talking about the different personalities and how you have to take into account the personality. So I think it's for the people that have read the original book, this new book's going to really, really help them to dig deeper in the whole thing of loving each other effectively. Yeah.
I am going to acquire it, so I talk about it and put it out with my friends and everything. Make sure.
Good.
I'll be doing that. I want to go through. I made some polls. I don't know how to call it, but I was talking through social media and everything. And I asked the people, what would you ask Dr. Gary Chapman? And 2 questions popped out. I'm going to ask you the first one. I think you kind of solve it or answer it, but the real question is, can we apply the 5 love languages to self-love?
To self-love. I think we can, yes. If words of affirmation is your love language, you can speak words of affirmation to yourself. Just stand in front of a mirror and say, self, I'd like to tell you, I'm proud of you for what you did last night or yesterday or what. Yeah, you can do that. It's okay, because the Bible says, love other people like you love yourself.
Yes.
If you don't love yourself, they're not going to get much. And so, we love ourselves because God loves us. Man, if a holy God can love us, we can love ourselves. I did have a man in prison. I was speaking to a group of prisoners, and the chaplain had arranged for their wives to be with them. Okay. And I spoke on the love languages. And I also spoke on apologizing and forgiving. And this man said to me, I had a Q&A, questions and answers at the end of it. And he said, Dr. Chapman, God has forgiven me for what I did. And my wife here has forgiven me. And my children have forgiven me. But what I want to know is, how do I forgive myself for what I did? And I said, well, First of all, if a holy God can forgive you because Christ has paid your penalty, then you can forgive yourself. It's a choice. So I would suggest if you can see if the chaplain can find you a place somewhere here in jail that has a mirror, and you just stand in front of the mirror and say, self, you did a horrible thing, and that's why you're in jail. But God has forgiven you because Christ paid your penalty. And your wife has forgiven you, and your children have forgiven you. So, self, today, I want to forgive you. I forgive you, self. I said, it's not a feeling, it's a choice. I'm not going to beat you over the head for the next 10 years because of what you did. I'm going to forgive you. Now let's live the rest of our lives here in jail, and when we get out, let's live it, walking with God. Yeah. Okay. Wow. Wonderful.
Next question. That's powerful. Can any marriage be saved?
Yeah, I think yes, in the broad sense, any marriage can be saved. And I mean by that I mean we are all human, and humans have a chance to change things. We don't have to continue the patterns that we've had for the past. Now, will all marriages be saved? The answer is no, they will not, because not everyone is willing to make changes. And yes, there are situations, for example, if there's physical abuse going on in that marriage, if a husband's kicking his wife and hitting her and pushing her against the wall and slapping her and all that kind of thing, it's not a loving thing to stay in that marriage. Here's the loving approach. Honey, I love you too much to do nothing about the way you treat me, because it's not loving, it's not kind, and I know you could not be happy with yourself about the way you treat me. So I'm going to move in with my mother for a while. I'm not leaving you. I'm not deserting you. If you're willing to go for counseling, I will go with you for counseling, and we will find some help on how you can change your behavior. I love you too much to do nothing. And so it's what we call tough love, but it's love. And you do that. And chances are they begin to reach out for help, and they can be changes. So every human being has the possibility of change because we have freedom. If we want to reject God, we can reject God and walk away and suffer the consequences. But we're free to make a choice. And so what we want to do is try to help individuals in a hard marriage. That's what counselors are all about. That's what pastors also, that's what pastors want to do, help people who are in difficult marriages. I've written a couple of books on this whole area. One is called One More Try, What to Do When Your Marriage is Falling Apart. One More Try, What to Do When Your Marriage is Falling Apart. And the other one is Loving Your Spouse When You Feel Like Walking Away. Loving your spouse when you feel like walking away. And, to take the tough love approach, it's much more helpful if you take the tender love approach first. That is, you speak their love language for an extended period of time first. And then if you don't see any change, you say, I don't mean you should go 6 months, let them beat you up. I don't mean that. No. But you love them. And then you take that tough love approach, because then they had a little taste of what it was like for you to really be loving them. And they got something to lose now. And so they're far more likely to respond when you take the tough love approach.
Right. Well, that's deep and powerful. Thank you for that. One last question. This is like 10 questions, and I gather and I put it in one. Dr. Chapman, do you believe the definition of the love languages need to expand or change for the digital generations who communicate in virtual environments and have different social dynamics?
Well, there's no question about it that online, the whole technological thing today has revolutionized the culture. Just to give you an example, I do a lot of flying to different cities where I'm speaking. And Before all this technology came, everybody talked to each other on the plane, and you got to know people sitting beside of you. That doesn't happen now. Everybody pulls out their phone, and they're on their technology, and you sit there for 3 hours, and you might say hello, and then you say, "Have a good trip." Yeah.
Yes. Or excuse me, can I get through? That's it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It is revolutionized. I think this is why parents need to have some guidance on helping children not to get addicted to the phone and to the screen.
Okay.
I wrote a book called Screen Kids. Screen Kids.
Mm.
And I talk about social skills that children need to learn, because if they're just turning all their free time to the screen, they're not going to be able to handle it in the real world. They don't know how to even apply for a job. I mean, they're not going to make it. And so we've got to be careful. Yes, there's a time for them to use the screen, but there ought to be times in which they don't have access to the screen. And let's go out in the backyard and play and do things. And I think as husbands and wives, we have to realize we have to take charge of this. I had a husband say the other day, said, "Dr. Chapman, my wife and I will watch a television program together, but when the advertisements come on, we turn it off and put it on silent, and both of us pick up our phone and start looking at our phone messages." And I realized we're not even talking to each other, about anything. So we talked. He said, "My wife and I talked, and we decided, let's leave the phones down, and when they're advertising, let's talk to each other, okay?"
That's a good strategy.
And I say to couples, I encourage couples, look, have a sit down time every day. It might just be 15 minutes, but sit down with each other and just share 2 or 3 things that happened today in your life and how you feel about them. They don't have to be huge things. You can just say, "Well, honey, I on the way home, I stopped and got gas in the car." And she said, "How'd you feel about that, honey?" He said, "Well, to be honest, I felt angry. I looked at the price and I thought, this is crazy." But see, many couples, they don't have a sit down time together. And consequently, they can go days and not discuss anything together. And they're apart all day long, unless they're working in the same place, they're apart. So why not sit down and share 2 or 3 things that happened today and how you feel about them? Just staying in touch with each other. And incidentally, I think we ought to have that kind of time with God every day too. If you're a Christian, sit down with the Bible. God speaks most clearly through the Bible.
Right.
And you just say, "God, I'm going to read this chapter and I'm listening to you. Whatever I need to know, I'm listening." And you take your pen and underline things that jump out at you, and you go back and talk to God. You have a conversation with God, and you can be asking him for help to do what you just read, or asking him to forgive you for something you did, but you're having a sit down time with God every day. You get a sit down time with God every day, you probably talk to God throughout the day. And that's the Christian lifestyle. We're just fellowshipping with God all day long, asking him for wisdom in everything we do. Wow. That's the relationship. That's the Christian life. It's a relationship with God. So, yeah.
Right. Well, Dr. Gary Chapman, thank you very much for all the information for this interview. It's been very helpful for me, and I hope for the families, marriages, and parents, kids who are watching this too. Thank you very much.
That would be my desire. And thank you. I enjoyed being with you, and keep up the good work. Yeah. And may God continue to bless your marriage as well.
Thank you very much. Can I end up with two more things?
Sure.
The first one, I don't want to be disrespectful somehow, but one of the things that my wife and I had talked about, and with other couples, that laughter is very important and has to be very important in our marriage. So can we end up? I want to ask you, Sam, I don't know how I feel it, but can you make a funny face for the internet so we can put it out and laugh?
I don't know what a funny face would be, but I can smile real big.
That's great.
Okay.
Thank you. And the second one is, what can I do personally, or this is off the record already, but what can I do personally with our team to expose this message more? My wife and I and some other couples have this in our hearts. We carry this deeply, that we want to help other marriages
Yeah.
who are struggling. And how can we help you, Dr. Gary Chapman, to put this out more? Maybe in Mexico, acting locally, of course. How can we help you with that?
Well, I think anything you can do, and different people have different opportunities, but anything you can do to make people aware of the various books that are in Spanish, that to me would be the most wonderful thing you can do, because the books will help people, and they're written in the language of the common person. Anybody can understand them. And as I said earlier, I've got a number of books on different topics, and I know there's a number of them in Spanish. So I think just being aware of them and what they are and who they apply to would help you know when to recommend them and how to recommend them to people. Because the book is just like an outside person that's just talking to you, about these things. And what I encourage people to do, and as you have an opportunity, I would encourage you to do this, encourage them to do it, is for a couple to share a book. And here's what I mean by share a book. Each of you reads the chapter individually.
Okay.
And then you sit down at the end of the week and ask each other, what can we learn from that chapter that would help us?
Okay.
And then next week you read the second chapter, and then you sit down and say, what can we learn from that chapter that would help us? It's a way to make a book most effective, is if each of you read the chapter. And most time, guys, men will read the chapter if you're just reading a chapter a week. You don't give them a book and say, you need to read this book. I ain't got time to read a book. But they can read one chapter. And once they do a couple of these chapters, they want to read the rest of it, And so it's just a practical way to help couples get input. If they read the same thing, then they can both reflect on it. What in here can we learn that might be helpful for us? Yeah. Okay.
We'll be doing that. Thank you very much.
Very good. All right. God bless you.
God bless you too. Here we are. If you need anything from Mexico, from Monterrey or whatever, we're open to hear from you. And thank you very much again for this interview. I really appreciate it. And God bless you a lot.
Well, thank you very much. And I enjoyed being with you. And I really appreciate what you're doing. So keep up the good work. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right.
God bless you. Bye.
Thank you. Same to you.